Hello everybody, my name is Hill Bill, and with me today is Bill Bryant from Biltwell. How are you doing, Bill?
I'm doing good, Hill Bill.
Thank you. So we're at your event right now, the Kernville Campout.
Yep.
And what a great event. I was here at your first event that you did.
In 2016?
Yeah.
Okay.
2000, it was, maybe it was 17, so it could have been the second year.
I think that was the 17th. This is the 8th one.
Yeah.
I'm not good at the math. So
Yeah,
that works out to be.
Yeah, I mean, none of us have degrees in higher education.
No.
But dude, what a great event. And I'll tell you, one of the things I love about it is it truly is just an event for bikers.
Yeah.
Right? So there's not a lot of vendors here. The people that are here, there's no hawking.
No.
And even though this is your event, I can't put my hands on a Biltwell helmet that doesn't belong to a person. That's kind of a different strategy to marketing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even a marketing strategy. It's just what we do. Like this, we like going camping on motorcycles. We didn't invent it, but at all. I mean, obviously, people have been doing it since before motorcycles, for the history of the world. But yeah, we just wanted to do a camp out and keep it motorcycle centric and not make it about shopping and going to, I don't know, a big rally. I'm not going to name any names. And
I know the name.
I've been to them and I've worked them and stuff. And I'm like, man, this is not what I want to do with my life on the weekend. And I don't expect to try to talk customers into doing that stuff. I want to go hang out, have a good time, eat some good food, meet some new people, or not hang out with old people that I already like and know. So it's become like a family reunion, once you've been in this culture for a little bit. There's people that come in from all over town, and this is a good opportunity to hang out with them. And we don't allow cars past a certain threshold, so cars can't be in the camping area. I think we made an exception for like a really neat old Econoline, and maybe somebody will sneak in if they got something super home built. But we don't want RVs, we don't want trailers. Of course, there's a few, but we make them park kind of off-site, and you need to ride in on your motorcycle. That's what motorcycles are made for.
Yeah, and these events really inspire motorcyclists to talk to motorcyclists.
Sure.
I actually got involved with Russ Brown at your event, the Sierra Stakeout.
Okay.
You guys participate that, right?
Well, that was our general manager at the time, Mike Ellis, and his wife Ashmore put that event on, and we were a major sponsor of it, but we didn't own that event. That was Mike and Ashmore's.
Yeah.
But it was very much in the same style as Kernville, just done in Northern California.
Yeah. So how did you get involved in motorcycling to begin with? What was your first memory of two wheels?
Well, I was always scared of motorcycles as a younger guy because I just didn't have any self-control and drank too much, and I just
that's a dangerous combination.
I was in the Marines right out of high school, and I think more than training accidents, motorcycles killed people that I knew, and I was like, I can't be trusted. I know I'm a knucklehead, and I'm not going to do this. So I was about 28 when I got a dirt bike. I had some friends that we were all working together. We had a little design agency designing stuff in action sports like snowboards, BMX, that kind of stuff. And I said, man, I want to get back into off-road racing. Let's build a car and we'll go to the desert. It's going to be fun. I had done that previously, and I was getting to the stage where we could build a cheap one together. And my friend Simon said, man, let's just get dirt bikes. And that way you pay for yours, I'll pay for mine, and we don't have to partner up. And I was like, okay, dirt bikes are cool.
We don't have to fight about who's going to drive.
Exactly. And he could buy a bitchin' one and I could buy a cheap one because I'm cheap and I got kids already, And so I got an old CR125 and we ripped around a bunch, and then I moved farther away from work, and the traffic sucks on the 91, as everybody in Southern California knows. So I bought a DR350 dual sport, and I could stand up and split lanes and all that, and I got to work way faster, and I was like, man, this is actually pretty fun, So then that escalated into CB550 and then eventually a Sportster and that kind of stuff, and that all started, I don't know, in the mid-90s sometime.
Oh, tell me about this bike.
So that one, I call it a 75. The engine's a 75. The Hafley brothers did the back end on a straight leg frame. It's got panhead 3.5 gallon tanks. It's still a 74. Rico High Bond modified, just did the engine. I got, I think, 10 years out of that engine before it needed to be rebuilt.
Wow, that's great, man.
Yeah. So we split the cases, polished them, the whole thing. It's a jockey shift. That's my preferred way to ride.
Yeah, nobody's gonna ask you to borrow your bike.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. Nobody wants to borrow it. And the clutch is a little shady because I kept the outer primary, just carved it up and made the stock shifter pedal into the clutch. So it's only got about 3/4 of an inch
you got a nub.
of travel. There's not much there. So it's a little shady to ride.
Yeah, it sounds really shady.
Yeah, I've been riding it for 13 years or something.
I love the pan tank on that because it really exposes the top of the shovel rocker boxes.
Right, yeah. And
that's
just
a clean look.
Nothing beats those pan tanks. The curves on them, there's never been an aftermarket tank that really captures it. And so I try to collect those anytime I can find them. Well, I haven't found any decent ones for cheap in the last 3 years or so.
You've been riding motorcycles a long time. You probably ridden like a lot of imports, a lot of Harleys. What's a motorcycle you rode that shocked you or surprised you? Maybe one that you didn't expect to like, but kind of knocked your socks off.
Well, we had a 2018 Softail, and the newest bike in my quiver is a 92 FXR. So to me, that's modern, you know. And that is my modern bike because it's got a push button start, I think is why. But I put a Dyna front end on it, and you know what I mean. And it's not a club style bike. It's really narrow, and it's sort of just my style. So to me, that was modern. And then we bought the Softail to be a development mule for Biltwell, so that we could fit parts on it, make sure they worked, and that kind of thing. And I rode it cross country a couple years after we bought it, and I was like, man, this bike, it feels like a Harley still, sits low like a Softail does. And I thought it was a really good, and this will go against the grain with every modern motorcycle guy or Harley guy, but I loved it way more than a Dyna. I've never been a fan of the Dyna. So
For the record, neither have I.
Man, I'm short. I got a short inseam. Those bikes are tall and unnecessary for a guy with a challenged inseam. And I've had them and I've worked on them and I've ridden them. My dad had one. When he got too old to ride, he offered it to me super cheap, and I was like, I just can't do it. I love my FXR. And so that Softail, being kind of new and pissing off all the Dyna bros and all that stuff back then, which I think people have gotten over now because they realize it's a good machine. I loved it, and I did 2 1,000-mile days. The first 2 days, spent a night and a day in Iowa with some friends, and then did another 1,000 miles the next day to the Gypsy Run. So it was 3 days, 1,000 miles, nothing, man, nothing. I mean, I freaked out at one point because I was just so spun from the road and thought it was low on oil and bought oil. And by the time I got out there, I'm like, is it really low on oil? And I kind of settled down and then checked it again. It was totally fine.
Yeah, you had that road weariness.
Yeah, I'm just like, it sort of screwed up in the head because I've just been buzzing the whole time. And we got a little bit of rain, or I got a little bit, I was solo on that, got a little bit of rain in Ohio. Other than that, 3,000 miles, no rain through the Midwest in the summer. Didn't get hit by a deer, none of that. I was like, that was what I was worried about: cops, rain, and deer.
Yeah.
And man, I rode that bike at least 100 miles an hour all damn day.
Yeah, what a great machine.
You couldn't do that on any other Harley I've ever had.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do that on a Dyna, but I just not into it.
Yeah.
So
you've been on the road long enough to have definitely been involved in an accident, I'm sure, of some sort.
No.
That's great. What's the secret to that success?
I look really far out. I don't drink and ride. Nothing, like not even one beer. I don't mind having a beer, but I have the discipline not to do that. I don't smoke weed and ride, none of that stuff. I don't mind partying when we get back to camp, that kind of thing, but I don't do that. And I don't know, learned over the years to sort of ride your line. And a lot of times I lead on our rides, to all kind of set the pace. And we split lanes and go pretty fast. Like my guys get a little upset with me sometimes because I ride fast. Not as much on this because it only has one shitty brake, but on my FXR I ride a little fast. And I like to start early and I like to go fast. Yeah. And they're like, fuck, we got to do that again. I'm like, tomorrow we're going to leave at 6:30 so we can beat the heat. I mean, this thing's a, air-cooled hunk of shit, and it's going to be cooking me through 100-degree temperatures.
You got to put one of those turkey testers on your belly so you know when to stop.
Man, yeah. But the only way to get through it is to keep going and go faster. So anyway, no, I haven't been in a crash. I've crashed dirt bikes. I got a foot that's a little messed up and a shoulder that's a little messed up from previous crashes on tracks, but and a jet ski crash once. I flipped a Class 11 Volkswagen race car last year. I was co-driving.
Is that like the Baja, right? The Class 11?
Yeah, it's like the one with full fenders and everything. So with the Warrior Built Foundation, which we're...
what a great organization.
Oh, yeah. We're contributors to that. And like I said, I was in the Marines. I was in the Army a little bit after that. And so I qualify. I'm a combat veteran, and I could be part of the crew. You're welcome. Thank you. And so, yeah, last year at the California 300, I was coaching kind of a younger guy that was driving maybe his first or second race, and I was telling him to pass. We were like only mile 3, and we went end over end, and the whole thing's on film. You just see me ragdolling, and that was bad. So I don't know if that counts as an accident story.
Yeah, I've
never crashed a car that wasn't a race car. Never crashed a motorcycle that wasn't a dirt bike. And I hope you didn't just jinx me for tomorrow's ride.
Well, I didn't. I was just asking a question. And there's plenty of wood here to knock on.
Okay, yeah.
What advice would you give, except that, to younger riders who maybe just bought a Sports or a Dyna or something like that? to help keep them safe?
So what I've done with my son and my daughter and anybody that will listen is I tell them to get a small dirt bike that they can stand up on easily and ride the shit out of that for at least a summer. Learn to feel what it's like to break the rear tire loose, learn what it's like to grab the front brake on accident, when you weren't thinking, and go down. Do all that where the risk is a lot less. You're not doing it in traffic, and you really only have to single focus on one thing, and that's not falling over on your own. And then once you've got that wired, get a Sportster or whatever your first bike is going to be, and ride around as much as you can with people that have empathy for your position. Don't just hop on the road. I mean, I see a lot of guys, especially with modern bikes, are so fast and so capable. They'll just buy one because their buddy's got one, and then get out on the freeway and think they can do the same thing that they can do.
It's so easy to get out of shape.
Really easy. And if you don't know what to do, you overcorrect and that kind of stuff. But man, if you've been squirrely as shit on a dirt bike forever, it does. I mean, there was a gravel patch on a freeway off ramp that we hit on Thursday, and I went whoa on it, and I didn't panic, and I didn't do anything. I just rode through it, and it was fine. And a dude about an hour later on a Dyna, coming through there on the stinker, he went over, and I don't know if he got hurt, but I know he crashed.
Yeah.
And it's like, ride what you can see, and don't get out of your head, and don't try to keep up with other people, and don't think just because you got a credit card or Harley was going to finance you that you're capable of riding this motorcycle.
That's great advice, man. Yeah. That really is. That's great
advice. That would be my advice. And then, there's a million little things about how to ride in a pack, and if you do ride with somebody that drinks consistently, which I've found, I'm like, nope, I'll meet you at the next one. I'm gonna stop here and work on my bike for a minute,
Yeah.
And then
pound a couple liquid deaths.
Yeah, exactly. I'll drink the water that looks like a beer.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to break off socially from people that don't fit what you think is safe. And I know that flies in the face of what a lot of modern or even old bike culture considers cool. I don't care. I care about being alive.
Safety's always cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing's cooler than being alive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's that old movie Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man. I think too many people watch that where Mickey Rourke said, "I'd rather be dead and cool than alive and uncool."
Well,
I'd choose the alive aspect.
Right. Yeah.
How did you get started with Biltwell? What led to the creation of that brand?
So in 04, part of 03, 04, and a little bit of 05, I was in Iraq with the National Guard. I joined that after 9/11. I was too fat and too old to get back in the Marines, so the Army would take anybody. I went in that. Supposed to be in tanks, which is what I was in the Marine Corps, and they reclassed us as infantry, so I went over there as a regular infantry guy. And once in a while, I'd have internet. I had a laptop, and when I'd be back at the FOB, which is like it's like your patrol base, I'd be emailing my partner back home, Harold. We call him Magoo. His last name's McGruther. Mm-hmm. And we had a little advertising agency, and we did, like I said before, action sport kind of stuff. So a lot of bicycle stuff, a little bit of snowboard stuff, that kind of thing. And so much of what we did was BMX, and it just got irritating to work for customers that were 13-year-old boys and thought they knew everything. And the internet was obviously around, but it was kind of nascent, as far as like online stores and forums, and social media was kind of non-existent. And we got to talking. I had a Harley Sportster at the time. I sold it when I went to Iraq, but I was talking with Magoo, and we said, hey, let's start something that we can grow old in. Like, I don't want to be 50. I'm 56 now. I don't want to be 56 and arguing with some shitbird kid over what length he thinks a top tube on a BMX bike. I'll get a job. You know what I mean? I'll just get a job. I'm not going to do that. And so we teamed up with a friend of ours, and we started Biltwell. We started doing business plans while I was there. I did the logo while I was in Iraq. I had Adobe Illustrator on a laptop, and we worked through all that stuff. And then Magoo, if you knew him, he's a little, he's a bit of a wild man. Magoo. Okay, he's the smartest human I've ever known. Yeah, and I love the guy to death. But he's
not
also
a conventional thinker.
Not a conventional anything. And so while I was gone, he won a 3-way parlay. I think that's a thing on some online betting forum. Won $9,000. So he bought a fly right kit. Here's a guy who never gave a shit about choppers at all. Loved dirt bikes, loved mechanical stuff, bicycle stuff down to every single spoke. He knows everything about them, loves it. And so he bought a kit bike, and he had it just about done, all the powder coat and a bunch of stuff done when I got home from Iraq. And we'd stayed up all night and finished that bike. And we both rode it around the next day, and we're like, wow, fuck, we made a chopper. Yeah. Yeah, let's do it. So then we went to Laughlin just to do like a little bit of, market research. And we walked around and just went, man, this is not what I'm into. I don't want to drink Bud Light. I don't want to sit in a parking lot. I don't want to act like I'm tough when I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's just not where we come from. And he's so intellectual that of course that shit is just offensive to him. He's like, I can't be here, And we said, man, let's do the El Diablo run. That was something else that we cooked up while I was gone. And I had done it previously with these CB750 guys out of Vegas. And I was like, man, there's got to be people out there that like to ride motorcycles, especially old ones, and go to neat places. And I've been all over Baja for surfing and for racing and just hanging out because it's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
And so we put that first one together. And we had I think it was 40 people, a few women, mostly men, almost all old bikes, most hand-built garage kind of stuff. And we were like, okay, these people exist. We didn't know any. We didn't know anybody that was into this. This felt like breaking trail we knew a couple people, but not very well.
Yeah, you didn't create the demographic,
No.
but you brought them together
not
in the
at
same
all.
shop.
No, we didn't create anything.
Yeah.
Like I said, people have been camping off bikes since the first bike was made, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so we thought, well, okay, there's a few customers. Let's do this. And Biltwell wasn't even out when we did that first EDR. We didn't have a single product, nothing. We had a logo and a website that said coming soon, sign our guest book or whatever. There was nothing to it.
What was the first product?
It was an exhaust kit. So people could, instead of getting cut off, take off scraps off other bikes, we had mandrel bent tubing in a couple of different radiuses and with the right flanges so that you could weld them for a shovel or for Evo or whatever. And that was the first thing.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. And now a whole bunch of people make them. A lot of the stuff that we initially made is so easy for people to get access to now, and the market's just a little bit bigger for that we've pulled back from it. We mostly focus on helmets.
Yeah, when did you get into the safety aspect of motorcycling?
Well, we came out with a novelty helmet. I forget what year it was, 2009, 2010, something like that. And we just wanted a helmet that fit and was small, and we kind of didn't care about the law too much. And then it sort of got popular, and we were like, oh shit, people are actually riding in these. And it was great, and that helmet was actually really safe. It was so soft, the liner was so soft that it would flex if somebody went down in it. But as we sort of matured as adults and as a business and everything else, we felt more of a responsibility to come out with something that was DOT approved. And so we did, I think the first one was called the El Fuerte. And then we moved on from that and did a Bonanza. Then we came out with the Gringo, then the Gringo S, then the Lane Splitter. Now we just added vents and qualify for ECR 2206, which is the new standard in Europe, which is really difficult to comply with because they made the hard line when you had to do it, but then they didn't tell you what the rules were. And so it was a real struggle. And it's one thing if you're showy, you have a battalion of, lawyers and engineers and all this stuff, and we're a couple dummies in a tilt up in Temecula, you know what I mean? And we have, our factory has engineers and, I'm not trying to discredit what we do, but we're not Schubert, you know? And so we were a little late to that game. It took us a little longer to do it, but we did. And so now the Gringo, we don't have them in stock yet, but the Gringo 2206 is coming soon, and the S and the SV are in stock and in our building.
You know what's great about all your gear is it really plays well with the entire demographic of motorcycle riders, right?
Yeah.
So much of this of our culture is aging out,
right?
And the older guys can still wear your helmets and your gear, and it's cool, and it draws a lot of the attention from the younger kids and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like you guys make a product that is so cool that kids want to be involved in this lifestyle,
right?
And that's something that's really beneficial for the health of the motorcycle industry.
I think so too, and we've just sort of tried to cut our own path, and do our own thing, and money's never been the biggest motivator. It's nice to get a paycheck, and not starve, but we're never going to be, we could have picked some other mainstream thing that made money if that was the goal. Yeah. We wanted to live a fun and adventurous life while we did support our families and that kind of stuff along the way, and this is just a reflection of what we do,
Yeah.
And so it was kind of natural. It wasn't like a big marketing plan, like, ooh, we're going to do this, and then that's going to turn the, so like.
Yeah, it's not Mad Men.
No, although that's such a good show. I love that show. Yeah, it just turned out to be a reflection of who we are and what we want to do. And as we grow and get older and everything else, we got to, listen. What we've learned in the last, 10 years is that our team is really where the strength is. And that might sound like some kind of corny management pitch, but it's absolutely true. Like, I'm here just hanging out with my friends this weekend. I look at the wave tops. We talk about stuff before. We do an after-action report or after-action review after the fact, and we go over every detail and see what we can improve and what we want to sustain. And then we talk about it as a team. And Otto's the main guy, and he runs his own events plus our events, and he's a full-time employee with us, not a contractor. And if we didn't have that team, if it was just up to me, it'd still be 40 of us idiots in San Felipe.
Yeah, Otto's great.
You know what I mean?
It's good to have an Otto to throw at everything.
He's great, and he's learned over the years it's been fun to watch him grow as a adult human too, and he's learned how important the team is and how to be good to that team so that these guys keep coming back. Like the security team for us is about 8 Marines out of Camp Pendleton, and our main guy there, Taylor, we'd call him up and say, hey, Kernville's coming. Can you get us, 7 guys plus you? You're like the squad leader. And then they're not knocking heads or anything, but they're running around making sure everybody's safe and that nobody's lighting picnic tables on fire, because when they do, we got to pay for it. And I own a few burnt picnic tables by now. And it just seemed safer and to let people feel at ease, And there's not a lot of that at biker events, and there's some kind of scary people sometimes. And this is a good place where people can come and kind of experience that sort of thing for the first time if they want, and be surrounded. If they like the festival atmosphere of camping right next to somebody, then they can do it. And if not, they can get an Airbnb in town if they got the budget for it or whatever. But it's having that team that allows us to do this stuff so that these other people can have a good experience. And it's never been about the cash at the end of the day. It's about how can we spread this culture, because of that experience Magoo and I had going to Laughlin, where we're just like, man, I'm just not doing this.
The exact opposite of that culture would be Baja. And you have a lot of your product has the Spanish names, and it seems like, and you do EDR. So I'm guessing that Baja had quite an impact on you. Can you tell me a story about the first time you went to Baja?
Woo! The first time, okay. So I used to work in a Volkswagen shop in high school, and I didn't have a license, and I would get a ride. I would skateboard to a bus stop, take 2 different bus lines to get there in Gardena. I was in Torrance, and my boss lived on my block. He'd give me a ride home at the end of the day. Well, next to him was a race shop where they built unlimited Volkswagen or Porsche powered one car, so it's like an unlimited race car, and they would go pre-running all the time. Well, once that guy, and I would volunteer. I'd like scrape the pee and mud and stuff off the skid plates and do the dirty work that the old man didn't want to do. I was just some dumb kid. And then they saw me drive in once in my old Volkswagen bus, and they're like, "Oh shit, you got a license?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "You want to go to Vegas?" I was like, "Yeah." You might talk to my dad, And then the next trip, so that was for pre-running to go practice the course and see what it was going to be like. And I was like, I'm hooked. This is the shit. And then he asked, did I want to go to Baja? And it was just me and the boss, who was just
What year would this have been around?
This was probably 82, 83. Okay. And he's now retired in Mulegé in Mexico.
I love Mulegé.
Oh, it's one of my. The only thing I like better is Loreto. I like Loreto just slightly better, but Mulegé is awesome, and he lives right on the river. He's just fishing his ass off. He was self-employed his whole life, spent everything on his race car, went down there, raced a couple races and won, like smaller local things, entered the fishing tournament, smoked everybody. Like, he's just a badass,
Yeah. The most interesting man in the world. It's him. We found him.
Absolutely. His name was Ron Brandt. So anyway, he let me go to Baja with him, and we were pre-running the San Felipe 250, and that was back when that town was full of college kids. And I was not even old enough to be a college kid, so it's not like now where I look down on them because I'm old and I think they're dumb. So at the time, I was like, holy shit, all these girls are hot. This is awesome. And me and Ron just got wasted out in town. I got to drive his brand new dually with Alcoas and red interior, and I was like, yes, ripping Brodies in what became the Circle of Death, 20 years later, or whatever the math is. And we kept putting each other's names in for the mechanical bull. I was wearing surf trunks. It was hot. The next day I woke up. I'd never been that drunk. I woke up the next day and my knees are just covered. They're just shaved, just scabs growing on because the mechanical bull's covered in carpet, And I didn't even realize it the night before. And he was all broke off. I don't even think we took the pre-runner out that day. We just kind of licked our wounds and went back out the next way. Did that for like 10 days in a row. And I was like, I don't know what it takes, but I want to just do this kind of stuff as much as I possibly can.
How often do you ride a motorcycle down there?
Well, now it's a little different now because I just moved to Washington State, so it's going to be a little harder. But for the previous, 30 years before that, for about 11 years, I owned a little shack on the beach, which sounds more awesome than it is. It's really like camping indoors, and it got broken into all the time. And we finally ended up abandoning it. But we would go down there 4 to 6 times a year for at least a decade, and always bring dirt bikes. And that got me to leading a couple of trips, like one for Vice TV. We did one called Doing It Baja, where I took a bunch of pro skateboarders and led them all the way to the bottom.
I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that I got to do the route. That was through a guy that I met on the Gypsy Run, that knew a guy that worked at Vice, the producer, director guy, and he had these plans to have like a security team with guns and all this stuff go down with him. I'm in a bar in Brooklyn, and he's telling me this stuff. He had set up a meeting between me and the guy from Vice, and I said, "What's your plan?" And he told me that, and I was like, "Okay, thanks for the drink. I'm out. Like, I don't even want to talk to you." You know, and he's like, "No. What would you do?" And I was like, well, "I'll send you an email. I'll send you a fucking plan."
Yeah,
because
a couple guys ride motorcycles down there and just hang out. That's what I would do.
Yeah. And like, so I sent him a plan. I did all the miles and all the days and all that stuff, and he was like, "Okay, great." And so anyway, that whole trip came from that.
Everybody has this idea that you need some large form of protection when you're down in Mexico and Baja.
You don't need any of that because it's not going to work. If those guys want to kill you, they're going to kill you.
Yeah, and it's one of the safest, coolest places that a person can.
It is, and if you act like an idiot in L.A. or San Francisco or Baja or any of that, you're an idiot wherever you're at, and you're asking for it. So there's days where there's bad luck, and that could happen anywhere. And I think we always say try to make yourself a hard target. And so you roll into any of those towns on a greasy old chopper, most people are like just kind of mildly entertained by you, and they know you don't have anything that's worth anything. You know, you just have a simple bag or whatever, and they're like, "You're an idiot. You're going to kill yourself. I don't need to mess with you."
I cruised down there in the BMW, and everybody told me that I was going to get a hard time being a gringo on a newer BMW.
Yeah.
I didn't have a single issue at all either. You know, it's if you're friendly and you got
it reflects you for the most part. If you go down there as a dickhead, they're going to treat you like a dickhead.
Yeah.
You know, so Baja's got some of the friendliest, kindest people you will ever meet that are not in a hurry. So you go down there, pumped full of LA vibe, they're not going to do anything for you. You go down there and show a little bit of respect and be kind and generous, and don't ask them to change who they are to suit your super important needs, and you can get anything you want. You know, we've been towed out of remote places. We've blown up trucks down there by just every kind of help you could possibly get, that if I was in Van Nuys, no one would have helped me, you know. But down there it's like, oh yeah, come on, stay with us, eat dinner, we'll work on it tomorrow, you know, kind of thing. And I've just never really been anywhere else that was that friendly. So Baja is definitely unique.
I haven't had the opportunity to do the EDR yet. We, my girlfriend and I just missed the EDR this year. We were down in Mexico, and we came back up about maybe 2 weeks before you guys had rolled in, but it's one that's definitely on my list. Where do you see Biltwell going the next 5 years?
Who knows? I mean, Biltwell, as far as product development, I could give you that plan, but I won't. That stuff is mapped out. I expect that we're going to continue to do the same events. The events evolve no matter what you do or what we do or what I do. So EDR has become kind of San Felipe Bike Week, but we still continue to do it because it's just a different kind of interesting. And every time I start getting bummed that it's too many guys on modern bikes and it's just not the same vibe that it was in 06, I'll meet some little group of kids on Sportsters with 6-over forks that most older guys will kind of shit on, and I see that they're having the time of their life. They're ripping it up. They're having a blast. They've never been down there. They're going to go down there for the rest of their life if they can. And so popping those cherries and getting those people exposed to it, as well as like seeing all the Mexican clubs come from the mainland, take ferries to from Los Moches or Mazatlan, come over to La Paz. Those guys are on a multi-week trip to do this, and they get up there and they just burn it down.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot out-party a Mexican biker. I fucking dare you. Good luck. Those guys rip.
Speaking of those kids, those are the kids that used to ride like moto or something like that, and they're just getting into the Harley scene.
Yeah.
The last question I had for you, what advice would you give those kids who maybe haven't bought that Sportster or that old chopper or something yet, and are thinking about getting into this culture? But they might be trepidatious. What advice would you give them?
Don't waste your money on something else. This is stupid. This is a waste of money, you know. So you could, I don't know, go to college or do something smart. But if you're too thick-headed and you really insist on doing it, I would say get something that's a little bit more modern, you know. And now, man, you can get great like adventure bikes and older Sportsters, stuff like that. Get something like that and learn what it is that you really want out of a bike. Define your mission is what I always say. So
that's
some
a
guys
great statement.
Man, they'll build a bike for something that they don't really do. You know, it's like I go to the bar and it's nothing but baggers. And I'm like, oh, you guys on a trip? Where are you going? You know, they're like, no, I came from 10 miles away. I was like, why'd you bring all that luggage? You know, it's dumb to me.
Yeah.
And so I think whenever you're picking, whether it's an old car or even a new car or truck or whatever, it's like seeing a bunch of empty pickup trucks going down the road. It's like, man, if you defined your mission, really all you do is go to work and drop the kids off, you probably should be driving a Civic or a Prius, but you're doing that for ego. So if you're doing that with a motorcycle, ego usually gets you in trouble. So maybe ride a couple of years on something cheap that you don't have to worry about if you scratch it. You'll learn a little bit, change your oil, learn how to tighten your chain or put a chain on it if it's got a belt, you know, learn the basics on it. I think it's the equivalent of like getting a neck tattoo as your first tattoo. Like you probably should get something dumb and small first and grow into it, you know what I mean, before you do your hands and your neck. And some kids have the money, or maybe they're mechanically inclined, or maybe they're just out of order in how I would do it. But they buy a, you know, bitch and panhead right off the bat, but then they can't do anything with it, you know. And it's like, you probably ought to ease into it a little bit and sort of grow into it. See if you can, because you'll learn more about it in the process, and I think you'll make a more educated decision when it comes time to actually pull the trigger and get what you really, really want. Yeah. You know, and the perfect scenario for me is having one semi-modern bike like me with my 92 FXR. I can really depend on that bike. It's easy to ride. It can do any mission that I want it to do, and then build something on the side and then swap off, you know, and that way you're never down. You always got a bike, because this one's always going to be down for something once or twice a year. You know, it's going to need some work. So that would be my advice: is start with something mellow, start with a dirt bike, sell that after 6 months, get something like a Sportster or a Japanese traditional bike, and then work your way up from then. Don't just go getting a payment on a Dyna and kill yourself on the freeway. Because it happens all the time. Yeah, it does.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm pretty excited about the band. You got 2 good bands tonight.
We do.
And we just finished up the bike show. It was really cool choppers out there, man.
It was great.
So
I got to pick the best chopper, and that guy John, I was lucky enough to catch him there, because sometimes it's just anonymous. You don't know who the dude is, and I want to make sure it's not a guy that brought it on a trailer or somebody built it all for him, or what, you know what I mean? I want to make sure it's a real person. And that bike's a rider. And I said, where'd you ride from? He's like, Orange County, but I've been on the road for the last 5 weeks. Yeah. I was like, okay, you know, and this is your bike. And he's like, oh yeah. Okay. Get ready to get called up on the stage, because Otto's going to tear you apart and make fun of you. You know? Otto's so mean, but it's so entertaining.
Yeah, it is.
And man, I got to give my guys something. So the 2 things that they enjoy, Otto loves talking shit on the microphone, because they're not all going to kick his ass. You know what I mean? There's some that are going to defend him. And then Josh loves to shoot the T-shirt cannon. So that guy will load and unload a trailer. He'll stay at registration for 10 hours. He'll coordinate with the security team. He'll do whatever it takes. And then at the end of the day, when we're doing stuff and he gets to get on stage or on top of the LMTV and shoot idiots in the face with a T-shirt cannon, it finally makes him happy. You know?
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for having us here. It's been a really great event. We're looking forward to I know we got to wait another year for the next CDR, because it's every other year. Yep. And hopefully I'll get down to Temecula and check out the digs down there.
Yeah, come on by anytime.
Thank you so much.
It was nice talking with you.
Absolutely, a true pleasure. Right. Thank you, sir.
Take care. Thanks.